Names come to your mind when you think of a successful person, which successful is maybe defined by society as a whole. Who do people consider to be successful?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
Johnson.
Who? Jack Johnson.
Buffett.
Warren Buffett. Okay. Who else? Benjamin Franklin.
I think somebody said Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
Oprah.
Rockefeller. Michael Jordan. Yeah, was he successful? I mean,
Disney.
Walt Disney. Yeah, that's a very good example. Well, what is it that makes somebody to be successful according to the commonly accepted standards? How do you know if somebody's successful?
Money.
Money, okay. They're good at something?
A good idea.
A good idea that makes money?
That they manage to.
They're famous?
And then they get famous, you have to be famous to be successful? Yeah.
Are you asking for general idea or
I'm asking what people think.
what people think? Yeah.
Yeah, is that that kind of commonly agreed that those would all be good characteristics of it, and what
Leadership. Probably.
Leadership, okay.
Yeah.
Influence.
Yeah.
Leadership and influence are kind of the
Confidence.
same thing. What?
Confidence.
Confidence. Okay.
Gold medals.
Gold medals. Well, especially if they're athletes. That's
Or musicians.
or musicians. Yeah, gold records.
Platinum and.
Platinum. Yeah.
Based on their action.
Say that again.
Based on their action.
Based on that. Okay.
They believe.
They what?
Their belief.
They believe?
No, their belief.
Their beliefs.
What do they believe?
Well, is that mark of success? Yes. Once again, in the gospel text this morning, Jesus stands the standards on their heads. He's been doing this throughout the Gospels as we've been moving through here. And he throws in these zingers and just really kind of disrupts everything. You know, the first shall be last. Become his children. Welcome children. Don't seek powerful positions, but seek to become servants. And now, in the text that we've just heard Jeffrey read for us, he points his teaching finger at the religious elite again. Now, last week, a religious lawyer got what Jesus was about, and that was a kind of a surprise, because usually the scribes or the religious lawyers are kind of on the brunt of Jesus' teaching. But last week one got it, and Jesus said to him that, he says, you are what? You are close to the kingdom of God, right? He said, oh, you're really close to the kingdom of God. You're getting this. And that proves that the impossible can happen. That even some of these guys who, you know, they can get it. But in today's episode, Jesus skewers the religious lawyers, once again, whom some translations call the scribes. And these were the trained professional experts who excelled in interpreting the religious law. Rabbis were grassroots experts. But these guys, the scribes, were the professionals. They were more professional. And they often held influential positions in the government or perhaps in the temple administration. They were a cross between being a college professor, a lawyer, and a high-level government leader. If you could kind of mesh all those things together, such as a city manager. So they were considered to be the most successful of people. And they loved to dress the part. And people considered that they deserved whatever honors they would be receiving. But in order to do their jobs, they often participated in a system that exploited the poor and the vulnerable. It's not that individual scribes totally lacked compassion, but that in their roles, they could not afford to be too concerned about the poor. They could not be they could not afford to be too concerned about the widows. They'd be ineffective in keeping things running smoothly if they put too much emphasis on those people. And sound all familiar? At all familiar with that? And this seems to be the kind of the background story behind Jesus' strong words here in Mark 12:38 to 44. I want to read them again in my paraphrase, the authorized Boydston paraphrase, and encourage you to listen for some of the high points. As Jesus was teaching, he said, "Watch out for the specialists in religious law. They get off on strutting around in their official attire. They expect people to greet them with all the honorific titles, and they get annoyed if someone fails to show the expected respect, even when they're shopping in the market. They expect special seating in the synagogues and at banquets. Then they have the gall to put widows out of their homes and onto the streets, all the while acting super religious as they put on performances with endlessly long prayers. They will certainly get what's due to them, no doubt." As Jesus sat across from the temple offering box, he observed how the members of the crowd gave their money to the Lord. Many of the rich people were quite conspicuous in the way that they were making their large contributions. However, there was a poor widow, perhaps one of the victims of the aforementioned law specialists, who came forward and dropped two very small copper coins, hardly worth a penny, into the box. Jesus saw this as a teaching moment and called his apprentices together, saying, "You can be certain that this poor widow has put more into the collection box than the combined offerings of everyone else who's been putting money into the box. Relatively speaking, they've all been giving spare change. But this poor widow, in her hopeless poverty, has given everything she had. Even though she could least afford it, she gave what she needed to live on." So as we read these two episodes together, you see the two sections there, right? The first section where Jesus skewers the religious specialists, and then the section with the widow putting money into the offering box. You see them juxtaposed. They're set against each other. They are meant to illuminate one another. As we read these two episodes, Jesus' point about success becomes even more focused. In his upside-down economy, the humble who give everything win out over the proud who exploit everything and everyone. That is the key point this morning. In Jesus' upside-down economy, the humble who give everything win out over the proud who exploit everything and everyone. By the way, exploit is the power word of the day. For those that are working on their English vocabulary, it means to utilize, to make use of, or to take advantage of something. It can actually be a positive word. For example, we exploited the new technology to allow us to communicate with many more people. Or it can be a very negative word. And the word is more often used in a negative way these days, meaning to take unfair or unjust advantage of something or someone. The company exploited the changes in the market by cutting wages so their profits could be higher. Or the poor, uneducated widow had no one to advocate for, so the shrewd neighbor exploited the situation by tricking her into accepting a below-market offer on her property. And it was something like this that was occurring in Jesus' time. Well, actually, it occurs any time that you have a wealthy class that ends up with lots of unchecked power. They exploit everything and everyone that they can. It's a part of human nature. And we even start to admire people who are good at it. We think of them as successful, and perhaps we at times aim to share in some of their successes ourselves. We think if I could be a little bit shrewder in my business dealings, if I could just angle a little bit better on the market myself, and that's how the economy naturally functions. But Jesus is trying to convert the economy, just as he's trying to convert individuals and families and to get them to join his kingdom. And in his kingdom economy, Jesus stands everything that we know about how the world operates on his head. From his perspective, as God in the flesh, he has a whole different way of looking at everything. And in his upside-down economy, those who sacrifice their last pennies are more successful than those shrewd individuals who have figured out how to exploit the system and the people in it so that they can rise to the top and enjoy the benefits of their wealth and the benefits of their influence. They like being treated as dignitaries and driving fast cars while wearing hot threads. They love being admired for what they have accomplished and how they have managed to outsmart everyone else, taking advantage of them in the process. The arrival of Jesus into the world, however, inaugurates an alternative kingdom to which he is recruiting citizens, although he's actually not just recruiting them, he's doing more than recruiting them. He's sacrificing his life to open access to his kingdom, not just to his kingdom, but to his family and to his entire life as well. And he does things differently in the economy that is generated by this kingdom. In Jesus' new alternative economy, success is tied to it. I've got 3 things on the list. In Jesus' economy, success is tied to justice. It's tied to justice, which in the Bible means that you are so in tune with God that you bend over backward to treat the people living on the margins well. In contemporary thinking, the primary idea of justice is about giving everyone what they deserve. But in biblical thinking, justice is about treating the needy with mercy and compassion. There is actual overlap between those two ideas when you start to think about them, the ideas of modern justice and biblical justice, but the emphases are different. So this is why Jesus jumps on these religious lawyers for acting all spiritual while they are somehow cheating poor widows, directly or indirectly cheating them. And if there is a hierarchy of sins in the Bible, this kind of injustice would be the top sin. If you combine what the prophets say and what Jesus says, if you include in there the whole book of James, it is all about this. The sin of injustice or unrighteousness is condemned more than anything else that has to do with sexual immorality or idolatry, or all those other sins are significant, but this seems to be one of the ones that rises to the top when it comes to the teaching in Scripture. Number 2. In Jesus' economy, success is tied to humility. Humility. And it's hard to miss the contrast in the passage, right? The arrogant, confident of their status, strut around in uniform, pontificating through their prayers, demanding the honor that society says that they deserve, but they get no honor from Jesus. No, it's the poorest woman who has no husband, no status. She is the one who is recognized by Jesus. She is the humble one. She is the one who is most honored, even though her contribution is the least. And that brings us to the third indicator of economic success in Jesus' kingdom. Sacrifice. She gave everything she had as an offering to the Lord. Jesus does not dig much into her motives or explain how she got her next meal or explain how she became poor. But the idea is that her small contribution was a big sacrifice that was greater than the large contributions that were not really sacrifices. That's a mouthful, but really clear. The idea is that her small contribution was a big sacrifice that was greater than the large contributions that were not really sacrifices. Again, this is in keeping with Jesus' personal mission, right? Which should come as no surprise. Jesus was consistent all the way through. He lived out the values of his kingdom, and he invited people to join him in living them out. He humbly offered his own life as a mysterious sacrifice for the restoration of humanity and for the undoing of injustice. I mean, in big scale injustice. And when we embrace him, we embrace his way of doing things. Jesus is God in the flesh. He could demand honor. He could demand sacrifices. Instead, he gives his life as a sacrifice and honors the least of people as model citizens of his emerging kingdom. In Jesus' upside-down economy, the humble who give everything win out over the proud who exploit everything and everyone. So, this passage is an invitation to choose sides in what we might describe as an epic battle between the empire of the world as it currently and somewhat efficiently operates, and the coming empire of Jesus, the emerging empire of Jesus, which has its own way of doing things, which has its own economy. And it begs the question, are you going to invest in the economy of Jesus, or are you going to invest in the economy of business as usual, with success defined in the business as usual manner? Are you going to do things according to the economy that is commonly accepted, or the economy of Jesus and his kingdom? And this is an invitation to rethink how you define success for your life. Will success for you have to do with accumulation, exploitation, a platform for pontification, or will it be about justice, humility, and sacrifice? Through Jesus, we're given a unique opportunity to rethink what constitutes success. And that's the good news. Does anyone want to add a thought, ask a question, or share a word of testimony? Glad I nailed that one. Summed it all up perfectly. Go ahead, Barry.
You know, a lot of people, they look at, like when we come here, when you pass the offering plate and all everything. You know, if you got something to give, fine. If you don't, that's wonderful. But the thing about it is, if I work every day, and I do, and I have something to give, I want to give it so that somebody can help somebody else, not so that you can see that I give. I don't care about that part, anything like that. But I just think that the offering plate should be full, on Sundays. I think we all should give so that whatever need is, out there, if it's just a penny, give. I teach these boys. They get money all week, and I'm like, every Sunday, I don't care, you better have $1. You know what I mean? Because I want you to know that if you give, you and your soul can rest at night. You can be, your conscience is clear. You know that you maybe have helped somebody in some way. So they bring their coins, but I try to make sure they got $1. But that's a good thing, is to give so that, I teach them this song. It's the song we sing. It goes like this. Life seems hard sometimes, and we don't know what to do. We just swallow our pride, bend our knees, say a prayer or two. It's not so easy asking one for help, but we really need each other. We're all sisters and brothers. Somebody tell me what to do. And when you're in need, I'll do the same thing for you. Like the good Samaritan reaching out to his enemy. We gotta stop our pride and prejudice so that our children can see. Somebody tell me what to do. And when you're in need, I'll do the same thing for you. For they are our future, they're the hope of the land, products of our environment, every woman, boy, girl, and man. Somebody tell me what to do. And when you're in need, I'll do the same thing for you. That's simple. That's simple.
And lovely. Thank you. Oh, wow.
This one, the question was in my mind is that, yes, we like to sacrifice ourselves to the people, but how we know somebody is really need to help, or somebody just beg to ask people to help?
How do you know if somebody really has a need or if they're faking it?
Yeah, it's like a fake. Oh,
Yeah.
So this one is, I think the people, they have their ability and capability to live well, but they don't want to do anything and to ask other people to help them. This one, in this way, is they get the people advantage also.
Yeah,
Things like
and just two quick thoughts on that. That requires wisdom to discern, and wisdom comes with experience and time. And God gives it to us to be able to kind of sort through those things and how to deal with each individual situation.
But
the other thing is that God is not as concerned about sorting through those things as we are. He doesn't look at it and say, you know, I'm not here to judge somebody else's life and say they've done this. The reason why they're having problems is they've done this wrong and that wrong and this wrong. And I mean, that's just not the perspective that we assume. Now, we may assume it in a slightly different way when we want to help them. What is the best way to help them? You know, is it it's not a judgmental way of thinking of it. It's more of, you know, it's not who deserves our help, but what is the best way to help is the question.
okay.
So maybe if we ask that question, then we are able to gain the wisdom to be able to sort through it.
Yes, okay. And what do you mean the best way? The best way to
The
help?
assumption is that if somebody is in need, you want to help them, regardless of how they got there. So then we ask, what is the best way to help them? Sometimes the best way to help them is to hand them some money. Sometimes the best way to help them is to not hand them some money. Sometimes the best way to help them is to encourage them with some words. But the only way that we know that is if we get to know the people that we are working on helping. If we have a relationship with them. That's why help comes through the relationship. That's why relationship is a part of the process. And that's why we want to have relationships with people or even organizations that are involved in helping.
Okay, I get one example. And my husband Danny, and before he worked for some Chinese people, and you know, few times the people talk to the people, the one who want him to work for them, and they say, "Oh, your wife is a Christian, and they are very, they have a good, she have a good heart. Please give me good price because your wife is a Christian." What do you think about about this one, and my husband hear about this one.
He should always be giving them a good price.
Yes. So
Price based upon whatever he can do. You know, it's
Yeah,
so you just have to ignore that kind of nonsense.
yeah,
so.
the problem is my husband is a non-Christian. After
Yeah.
he hear about this one, what he feels very bad.
Yeah, and you have no control over that.
Yes,
That's
I
not,
see.
and
So,
you have no control over
This
the
is what
other
I
people.
mean, and
Yeah.
I think when we have the people, we have to.
But that's
the-
not helping.
That's not helping
They're
them.
just trying
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah, you guys say, what's the best way to help them? And you say, that's not helping them.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
not
so
helping.
that's,
Yes.
that of course it was.
I want to reflect on Mary's song and her idea. That is, when we can give is up to us, is from our hearts. We should not feel pressure from the outside external situation. When I hear her sing, I sense a lot of willingness, a lot of generosity, and I think that should be the way we can help others. If you're willing.
You want it to come out of the heart, you want it to come out of the willingness. It's not like it's an external that someone is trying to put on top of you. That's not the point of it at all either. But we do train ourselves to be willing. As Mary's talking about, you know, I encourage these guys to give, you know, just to put something in. You know, I want to do that because that's a training thing. That's how we develop the heart. Our hearts follow our actions. Jesus said, where you put your treasure, that's where your heart will be. Where you give, then your heart will follow that. So that's. Yeah.
Well, I think God wants us, he wants our willingness and generosity, and He looks at that. He doesn't look at, well, maybe we made a mistake and we gave money to some, you know, it was someone that they didn't need that money,
Yeah.
or, you know, He's looking at us and our willingness, and then He will lead us to those people that really need it.
I have other thoughts in my mind. It's like when we give money to the people, what they don't need it, we only encourage them to continue to cheat other people to give them the money.
Right.
This is not a good news.
Right, that's why you need wisdom
Yes.
to be able to help them in the best way.
Yes. This is not what we, from our heart, anything, yes, our heart willing to help
This is a skill that parents learn with their children.
Yes.
You know, you figure out, you know, what is the best way to give, what do you give to kids, and, you know, how do you teach responsibility? Yeah.
Sometimes gift is not a good way.
Right, sometimes not. But in this particular story, you've got a woman that cannot afford to give, and she's giving. That's the point of it. And she is, in that way, she is being more in tune with the kingdom of God than with the big shots that can afford to give lots of money and just kind of make a show out of giving a little money.